And welcome back. As we go ahead and continue working with file, let's take a minute to go ahead and discuss the issue of path names. So with file and path names, when you're giving a file name as an argument to a constructor for opening a file in any of the ways we discussed, you may use a simple file name, which in case assume the file is in the same directory or folder as which the one the program's running. That's how we've been handling our file up to this point. Whether it's numbers, text, sample, whatever the name of this file is, it's always going to be inside of that same folder that we're working with in Eclipse, such as numbers.txt. You can also do what's known as a full or relative path name. So that'd be like C:// program files, etc., etc., etc. But there is something we need to talk about when we're looking at those path names, and there's a couple of definitions we should look at first. First off, you have to understand that a path name not only gives the name of the file, but also tells what directory or folder that file is in or expected to be in. A full path name, on the other hand, as the name suggests, gives a complete path name starting from the root directory. So for example, your C drive. A relative path name gives the path to the file starting with the directory your program's in, such as, let's say, documents. Now, the way that you specify these path names depends on your particular operating system. So let's actually look at creating a path here. Well, Windows uses a different type of slash when we start looking at how these path names are. And this is something to keep in mind because this kind of backslash versus forward slash can have some connotations for how we write our code. So for an example, if you look at a Windows path name, notice the direction that the slashes are all pointing. This is something I need to point out. If I start saying forward slash, backslash, not a lot of people can necessarily keep them straight. So instead I'm saying take a look at the direction these are going, because these are the same direction that we use escape characters for. Now, if we want to create a buffer reader that connects this file, of course, we can use the file. We got buffer reader, input stream is new buffer reader, new file reader, and of course you can see we have a full file path name here. As I've already mentioned, we have to be careful here because we want to avoid escape characters. You'll notice that, for example, we use / in place of a single slash, since otherwise Java will interpret that backslash paired with a character, such as /d. Or if we had any of our other ones that we're familiar with, it's going to say, oh, there's a slash mark here. What escape character are you wanting to use? Now, although you must worry about using a backslash and a quote string, this does not occur with path names that are read in from the keyboard. So if you were to type that into the keyboard, Java is not going to interpret that typed path as an escape character because it's not something that's underlying in the code. It's something that's coming in from user input. So it's treating it just as a full string. Now, one way to avoid these escape character problems altogether is always to use Unix conventions when writing path names. And we're going to take a look at that. So let's do some proper path naming here to reevaluate how we want to get some input. So a Java program will accept a path name written either with a Windows or a Unix format, even if it's run on a computer with an operating system that does not necessarily match that syntax. Thus, an alternative way to create that buffer reader input stream, which we just saw, is to instead connect it to the Windows file in the following manner. You'll see we have a C:// data file /good data / data.txt. Again, there's no backslashes here, so Java's not attempting to read this in as escape characters. And here we are in Eclipse to go ahead and take a look at this. And so what we are having here is I've actually switched up just a little bit because, again, this is all related back to FilePath. I've actually used the print writer here. And so we have an output stream here for it. But you could very easily take the same example and apply it to a buffer reader. So here my buffer reader is coming in from the source folder here, so it's in path names. In fact, I went ahead and ran this just with the data edge so we can see what this is going to look like. So that's what we are expecting to look like. So I'm going to delete this out of here because what I want to do instead is to write to this C file. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind is sometimes when you're doing things like print writer, it may not automatically create those folders for you. A lot of times they'll create like text files and stuff like that, but just be careful that you have the proper read-write permissions if you're going to try to create a folder. If that folder doesn't exist, you may have to give it that permissions or create that folder manually. And so that's what I went ahead and did here is I actually went ahead and created a folder here on my C drive called data files, and that's going to store this data added.txt file. And so when I go ahead and run this, all right, my program's run. So my data original, of course, is just this set of numbers 1, 2, 34, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then if I look in here now, I have a data added. That data added wasn't there a moment ago, but if we open it up, we'll see it's the exact same set of numbers that we saw just a second ago from that data added txt file that was here in my source folder. So again, when you're working with the path names here, it's better to use the / here, because then again, you're not relying on Windows and you don't have to worry about escape characters possibly throwing something off.